Hello friends! So look at this. We are done for our first client build for the month of August. And this is for Angel. And she is a student, and of course she also wanted to use this for gaming because she plays Valorant. Alright? This is a budget build, Ryzen 5 3600 in a MSI Mortar Wifi MATX motherboard and an EVGA GTX 1650 Super care of Newegg. So we were able to take advantage of the 15,000 plus free shipping promo by Newegg, and I hope they will continue that promo and make it a regular one so that we will be able to purchase more affordable items from Newegg to build this kind of setup in the future. So for those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Dexter, and in today's video I will show you the way on how I built this computer. I will also include in the video the good things and the not so good things that I have done, mistakes that I encountered, and how can we correct it. I was inspired to create a video something like this because I want to help people who wanted to build their own PC, because right now in this crisis we are living in the new normal way of doing things, like people starting working at home online and schooling at home at the same time. So I receive a number of inquiries on what PC to build. I also receive a number of troubleshooting questions as well, so I would like to address that. And instead of me answering all your questions one by one, I would like to consolidate all your inquiries and perhaps answer it in a video something like this. So this video only consists of 4 basic parts. The first part is the unboxing of the components of this PC. Second is the test bench, the installation of Windows, the update of the BIOS. And the third one is the assembly time for the tower. And the last but not the least, the benchmarks for those of you who wanted to know the capacity of this kind of build. So without further ado, let's get this video started right now. For the central processing unit, I choose Ryzen 5 3600 for Angel because aside from homework and schoolwork, she wanted also to use this as a gaming PC. And I believe the Ryzen 5 3600 is more than capable of providing you that sweet spot performance. And for our motherboard, it will be the MSI MAG B550M Mortar Wifi, so that we can take advantage of the Gen 4 capability of this beautiful motherboard. And it has a Wi-Fi capability so that you don't need an Ethernet cable for internet connections. And for the RAM, it will be the G.SKILL TRIDENT Z Neo, a 3600 MHz RAM, and this comes in 2 sticks of 8 GB each. And it has RGB. And for the graphics, we go to EVGA GeForce GTX 1650 Super SC Ultra Black, the sweet spot for any 1080p gaming. And for our PCIe Gen 4 SSD, it will be the SEAGATE FIRECUDA 500 GB. So this will provide you a fast boot on your Windows operating system any time of the day. For extra storage, we also got the SEAGATE BARRACUDA 1TB for more space. We have a fully modular ET780 Plus Gold from Silverstone power supply. And we also got the Dark Flash 120mm fans. All are ARGB compatible. We got one box with 3 fans and a remote. Okay, now before we do the test bench, let's get ready to have our screwdriver. And these are few of the components that we need to prepare. First, let's set up the motherboard. Since I don't have a test bench, I will just use the box and the anti-static cover. As you can see, there's a small arrow on one of the corners in this Ryzen CPU. The basic orientation for any Ryzen CPU is it will be facing on the side. Make sure that you gently place it and have a small snug and lock the locking components. Now, for the random access memories or RAM, we have to place them on the DIMM 2 slots for A and B. So basically, you will just have to place them on the second and fourth slot from the left. Okay? If you misplace any of these RAMs, it's either your computer will not work or it will just go in a loop BIOS error. So make sure that you place your RAMs on the correct slot. Now I am trying to place the M.2 NVMe SSD on the right spot, and I choose to place it here on the first slot where it has a built-in heatsink from the motherboard. So properly and gently place the screws. Now if you observed better, one of my mistakes here is not placing the CPU fans first. But I think that's fine for this one because this is only a test bench that I am trying to prepare. So I went ahead and installed the GPU first. And now I took the CPU fan, and as you observe, although the camera angle was not able to capture it, I was able to confirm that there's already a pre-installed thermal paste. So I just went and placed it properly on the motherboard and have a slight snug fit on the screwdrivers, and properly connected the CPU fan pin on the motherboard. So our assembly for the test bench is done. We have our RAM, we have our CPU and the CPU fan and the graphics card, and as well as the NVMe SSD for the operating system. So let's get ready to start the test bench. As I prepare the power supply, make sure to also take off that plastic covers from any component that you have. I went and connected the cords from the power supply to the motherboard. There goes the motherboard pin and the CPU pin. And don't forget the graphics card pin as well. I also connected the keyboard to the motherboard so that we can use it to control the BIOS settings. And also connected the USB with the BIOS update file for this particular motherboard. To turn on the test bench, we just need to short the power pins by using a screwdriver. Now, only do this if you're really sure on what you're doing, because you might get into trouble. So I didn't fast forward the scene so that we will have an idea on how long will it take for it to boot up. Patience is a virtue in building a PC. And if you happen to encounter any problems, make sure that the cables are properly connected from the power supply to the motherboard. Now, one of the discouragements that I will get, especially on reading reviews of any motherboard products is that they encounter problems without even knowing that there's a possibility of a BIOS flash update. So in order for us to make sure that the motherboard will work on our advantage, the first thing that I will suggest you to do, especially on your first boot up with your computer, is to update the BIOS version of your motherboard. Take note of that. So from here, it's very obvious to see there that the current BIOS version of the motherboard on stock is still in version 1.00. The new update for the BIOS for this motherboard is version 1.10. So let's go ahead and update the BIOS version of this motherboard so that we can avoid any future problems. So please take note that every motherboard manufacturer has a different BIOS update versions. So all you have to do is to search for the name of the motherboard on their website and pick the BIOS update for the motherboard respectively. For the purpose of this video and for this build, I am showing you right now where to find the BIOS update version for the MSI MAG B550M Mortar Wifi. You may need to download this BIOS update version from a separate computer so you will not have any trouble on updating the BIOS firmware version. Also take note that you will need to download the drivers for the motherboard, so you may also wanted to download those drivers update as well. Now the next thing that we will do is we will overclock the RAM or the random access memory. As you remember earlier, I specified it is a 3600 MHz RAM, but you will not be able to use that power if you will not manually update the overclocking settings of your RAM on the BIOS settings. So I suggest that you will do this next after the BIOS update. The third important thing that we need to do in the BIOS settings is to change the boot priority to the USB which has the Windows installer. This will allow your motherboard to read the USB and install the Windows operating system into your motherboard. On the advanced settings, go to boot and change the boot number 1 priority to the USB with the Windows installer. And the Windows installation wizard will pop up and appear, so you will need to just continue with the process. You may not need to enter the product key yet. You can do this after the Windows installation is successful in your computer. If you wanted to purchase a product key for Windows 10 Pro permanent license, you can message me on Facebook or YouTube for more details. Since I only installed the NVMe SSD on the motherboard, I choose the NVMe as the allocated space for the Windows. Now that the Windows installation was successful, the computer will then eventually boot you up to the Windows platform. Now, just to make sure that we will be able to boot back to the Windows platform the next time we restart the computer, we can easily go back to the BIOS settings to follow these particular steps that I will show you. In this case, the motherboard was able to change the boot priority to the NVMe SSD, and we are good to go. And for the third part of our video, we will do the tower assembly. This is one of the most affordable case that I found so far. and we'll just try to check if this will suit our motherboard or the system as a whole. It's a COOLMAN ATX tower with a glass side panel and a mesh front panel. I am removing the front panel and both the side panels so that we will have an easy access for the assembly. Find the standoffs and make sure that you properly align it on the motherboard. Gently place the screws on the standoffs so that you will be able to place the motherboard intact. Proper cable management will also help, especially when tidying up your case. So I'm trying my best to keep these wires out of the view. Here's one of my takeaways on this case. There's a slight problem on the position of the USB 3 front panel connector. It won't properly align on my motherboard, and I wasn't able to connect this one up. Now, if you happen to have the same case and an MATX motherboard as well, you may encounter and run into this same problem. I went and removed the motherboard and tried to connect the USB 3 connector beforehand, but I was not able to do a workaround. So the front USB 3 connector is not connected to the motherboard. That means we cannot use the USB 3 slot on the front panel. But I was able to connect the pins for the audio and the USB 2, and make sure to read your motherboard manual because it will help you find the right orientation for the pin connections, especially for this power switch, HDD LEDs, and reset switch. But if you happen to mistakenly connect these power pins, you may need not to worry because it will not hurt the motherboard. You will just need to do a trial and error then. Now let's connect the 120mm fans on the front. This case can handle 3 of them. I prefer having the front case fans as intakes. This case can also fit 2 120mm fans on the top. I prefer having the top fans as exhausts. We can also put a single 120mm fan on the rear side as exhaust as well. This part of the video has a problem. Let me know in the comments if you find one. And now we are connecting all the fan pins to the dark flash remote control so that we will be able to control the lighting effects and have the motherboard communicate with the remote as well. And don't forget to connect the ARGB pin to the right header on the motherboard. And now it's time to place the power supply on the bottom. What I suggest is you connect the cables beforehand so that you will have no trouble connecting it. Molex pin from the dark flash remotes. Properly connect the CPU pin to the CPU header on the motherboard. And carefully and properly connect the motherboard pin to the motherboard header. It's time to place the graphics card now to the motherboard. And use the right PCIe cable that is provided by your power supply. I forgot to press the record play button while I installed the extra storage on the bottom of the case, but this is where your SATA connector should be connected to your motherboard. Carefully place the side panel cover after you properly manage the cable wires. Placing the front mesh cover and the glass side panel as well. And get ready for the reveal. That was it, guys. It's pretty simple, and if you have further questions about build or how to build a PC, just message me personally on Facebook or in YouTube. And if you wanted to support me so that I can continue doing this kind of stuff and provide quality videos for you in the future, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and don't forget to like and share this one as well. So we are not done yet. If you wanted to see the benchmarks of this PC, then I will show you the benchmarks before the video ends. Bye for now.